Howdy folks, thanks for tuning in for another cruise with Smooth. Hope y'all doing okay today. So I know that last night I did do my 2020 election predictions, and I kind of got a little out of order of what I had in mind. One of the things I wanted to talk about is I think that I can say what all I want to say without giving away personal details. So, at my job, sorry folks, at my job, I work at a union shop, and there are a lot of perks to working at a union shop. One of the downsides to it, in my opinion, is they play to the lowest common denominator in a lot of cases. So, giving you a case in point, if you get a supervisor that is very much just by the rules, by the book, you know, you do this, you get rolled up, you do that, you don't, whatever, you get what I'm saying. If you end up with that supervisor, all the rules play to the lowest common denominator. And what I mean by that is, okay, if you are a fantastic employee, or you're talking about a fantastic employee, and you know, they show up to work, they don't come in late, they don't get in attendance trouble, they don't cause production problems, you know, they help out when they can, when they need to. If you have a by the book supervisor, that doesn't come into account. Whereas you can have someone that's always late, always causing drama and problems, always fill in the blank, and they get the exact same treatment as the great employee. So that's one of the downsides of working at a union shop, is that the lowest common denominator, the worst employee that can actually do the work, gets no better treatment than someone that'll go above and beyond in any circumstance. So that's something that's irritating about it. It's not necessarily a fault with the system itself. It's just, you know, do you have someone rise and fall on their own merits, or do you know, there's arguments for and against unions, and I'm not going to go much further than that. One of the things that is in the contract, though, is if you have rough train crossing and a pickup truck. I apologize, folks. If you have a substance abuse problem, and you can, you know, anything from alcohol to street drugs, they have a system in place set up to help you. And I think that that's good, because, you know, the union and the company realized that it was a problem, and they set all that up. And it happens at no cost to you out of pocket for your treatment. You might end up missing work depending on your problem. But even then, it comes out of, I forget what it's called. For our company, it's Unicare. But, like, okay, if you have to take 3 weeks off to go to a drug program, or, you know, I'm just pulling numbers out, I don't know. You do get paid a certain percentage of a normal week's pay to go get yourself cleaned up. And I think that's wonderful, because you don't have to make the choice between checking into rehab or making sure your kids got food on the table. I said all that to say that last night there was one of my coworkers that probably got fired. This guy, not gonna name him, not even gonna make up a name for him. He had an alcohol problem, and I didn't know him when he first went out to rehab, but he had left for a while. And when you leave the company for a time for, medical leave or whatever, you're not guaranteed to end up back on your job once you're out for so long. They will shuffle people around, fill your job, and then when you come back in, you go back to work available. Well, this guy came back to work. He had been out for a while, came back to work available. He ended up working right next to me off and on. Okay, that's fine. So, someone chopped a tree down, have a free sign right next to it. Might see if I can make this truck work a little. Anyway, so this guy ended up working right next to me for a while. He was working for about 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even a little longer than that, I don't know. No real problems. One night he came in drunk as a skunk. Couldn't do the job. I mean, so drunk he didn't realize what exactly was going on. Couldn't do the job. Couldn't keep up when he was trying, and just in bad shape. Well, he, that night, we ended up kind of taking care of him, making sure he didn't get in serious trouble. And he went out for rehab again. Came back in. And I think he worked a day, and just the way the scheduling worked, he worked like one day, and when he come back in the next week, he was drunk, and this was yesterday. Too drunk to work, and he started talking to me about something, and I'm, trying to work and trying to help the people that are trying to cover his job that don't know what's going on, and he's saying that, and I'm not going to go into detail because I do not want to compromise this guy's privacy. But apparently there is a lot going on in his personal life that's causing him a lot of stress and anxiety and anger and worry and everything else that's causing him to turn to the bottle. But the answer to that problem ain't down in the bottom of that bottle, whatever it is. And as it stands, it's probably going to end up getting him fired. So, it's sad in my opinion to see someone get to that point where they can't take care of themselves. And this is not the first time I've seen it. There was a guy that I used to work with back in the dealership days. This dude, he hired in after I did. He didn't have reliable transportation every day, and the dealership that I was working at had done away with the demo program, so you couldn't jump in a car and, I'm going to drive this for couple weeks and demo it. After he had hired in, I got grandfathered in on the demo program, so I still had a car, and I had my personal vehicles as well. So anyway, this dude, when they, about once a quarter, when the company, what in the world? Okay, we're gonna try to take a shortcut and beat that 18-wheeler. Hang on, folks. bumpy road. So anyway, this when the sales staff had a good quarter, I apologize about that, folks. And I'm sure that, and I know that they did do stuff for the service people as well as the parts people, but when the sales staff had a good quarter, the general manager would treat everybody to whatever they wanted at a decent steakhouse. So, give you a case in point example of this. I hadn't been there long at all at this point. I just kind of rode in on the coattail of this. I was dating, but I wasn't. My girlfriend at the time was out of town. She had gone back to college. She was going to college out of town. And so I didn't really have obligations on my time aside from work. So we're selling cars. It's Thursday, I think it was Friday or Saturday night, and they're like, hey, we're going to, Texas Outlaw. I'm like, okay. Wasn't really planning on going anywhere. I got dinner waiting at the house, or, leftovers or whatever the plan was. They're like, no, the GM's buying. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, oh, they, about once a quarter, if we have a good quarter, we'll go out and he'll treat us out. Whoa, mail truck. Going around. So anyway, where this story picks up is when you went out to eat like that, whatever you wanted was on the GM. And so you could order a big old massive steak and ribs combo with all the fixings, and he ordered a boatload of appetizers, and you got your drinks, whether it was adult beverages or just soda or whatever you wanted. It was all on him, all the way down to the tip. He would leave a rather generous tip for the server because, you're bringing in 10, 12 people and they're eating like kings that night. So he took care of the server. And it was a really nice experience getting to hang out with those guys outside of work. Everybody was a little bit more amiable, even before they had been plied with social lubricant. So anyway, where I was going to is this guy that didn't necessarily have the most reliable transportation all the time. He lived blocks from my house, is how I would measure it. So he and I didn't share the same schedule, but on days where we went into work at the same time, I didn't mind going picking him up. He lived 3 or 4 blocks from my house, I think. And he had hired in. He had been in the hospitality business for years and years and got out of that for greener pastures. So anyway, I'm picking this guy up. Well, the general manager tells us this one night, hey, we're going out to, this steakhouse. I'm like, oh, sounds good. And I'm talking to this guy that's been riding with me. I'm like, hey, you want to go? He's like, no, I don't have a car. I'm like, well, I'm going. I'll take you up there, drive you home, whatever you want to do. And so we go up there, and same deal. Everything's on the GM, and we're just eating, drinking, having a good time, socializing, and talking about how good we did. Fair. So this guy, and I didn't know this at the time, he had a massive alcohol problem. And I've always felt bad about this. But he, I don't drink very often. I'll have a beer or a mixed drink here or there, but I don't drink very often or to huge excesses. So we go up there, and the thing is, like, I know I got to drive myself home. So, and I'm driving in a company car, so I'm not going to get plastered and get in the company car and get a DUI or worse, wreck it and hurt or kill somebody. So the only incident I ever had in the company car was a deer ran into the door. I did take it somewhat seriously. Well, anyway, go out to the restaurant and I get a couple beers with my dinner. You know, I might get a beer while we're having appetizer. I think I got one more. And this guy's like, really? Anything we want? And I'm like, yeah. You know, whatever you want. You know, you want something expensive? Get something expensive. Something cheap sounds good. I said, don't order based on dollar, order based on what you want. And so this guy's just amazed that, you know, we're getting treated like this and eating this good, because he had just started his career in the sales department and hadn't gotten to the point where he could have afforded easily to have gone out and done what we were doing, especially with no budget. So this guy's just tickled, and he got himself a little bit. Well, he ended up not coming into work for a couple days. No one can get a hold of him. And I'm going to skip a little bit of the story, but the gist of it is I come to find out later that he was an alcoholic, and he would get his life organized and together, get caught up on all of his bills, get a job, and things were good, so he'd start drinking. Well, he couldn't set it down. So he'd end up in trouble due to alcohol. What is this guy doing stopping right in the middle of the road? Okay. Big tractor. So he would end up in trouble due to alcohol. May or may not lose his job. He would always end up getting behind on stuff. And then he'd have to re-straighten his life out and start the whole process over again. Well, this particular time, he ended up going all the way down to rock dead bottom. He got injured. He's like, I don't know what happened. I don't know if I fell down the stairs in my apartment building and got hurt. I don't know if I did something to one of my neighbors and they beat me up, but he had bruised ribs. His face was swelled up pretty good and not in great shape. So he lost his job at the dealership, and on top of that, he couldn't get in and out of cars real easily. Ended up having to move and realized he had a problem and admitted it and got into AA and got cleaned up. So it worked out in the end, but I said those two stories just to say, if you have a personality that does tend towards obsessive addiction, and understand, I got no problem with alcohol. You know, I drink, my wife drinks, my mother drinks, my dad drank, my grandparents drank. I've got no problem with it in moderation, or just to the point where, you know, when you're not to the point that you're doing stuff that you get informed about later and go, oh, wow, that was me. I'm okay with it as long as you're not there. But this dude didn't have that level. So I said all that to kind of say, and I don't even have problems with marijuana. I wish they would legalize it in my state. I wish they'd decriminalize it federally. And, you know, if you get busted with marijuana for possession, you know, pick a small dollar amount fine, you know, $25, $50. And if you're dealing, but there's no violent crimes associated with it and no other unlawful things, or, you know, hard street drugs, maybe a larger fine. I don't understand why victimless crimes put you in jail. So that's kind of my stance on it. And, you know, I've gone back and forth on it, but more broadly, I don't think the government should have a huge amount of power. The federal government, I think it should all be states. You know, if a state decides that they want a zero tolerance policy towards drugs and alcohol, that's their business entirely. People will move. If another state decides that they want everything legal, well, that's fine, but I think that you have issues. I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. I don't know where. But the moral of all this is don't let anything get so tight of a hold on you that you can't set it down and that it runs you. Because most times it will run you into the ground. And I've seen it. I've seen people abuse drugs and alcohol to the point that they end up homeless or worse. A woman that I used to drive into work every day, I'm about to get off of here, I promise folks, I'm not going to keep y'all much longer. A woman that I drove to work for quite a while had a son that she had to cut off due to his street drug abuse. And we carpooled for 2 years, I think. And he was a mess. He'd get infections, he'd get beat up, he'd get this and that, he'd end up in the hospital, he wouldn't stay for his treatment regimen, he'd end up back out on the streets so he could score. I mean, just every bad decision that a person could make in that position he was making. And the thing is, it's because he had to have his next fix. So don't let something get its hooks on you like that. You know, if you got a problem with alcohol or whatever, go seek help or talk to your friends. Talk to a pastor. You know, they deal with a lot of this stuff. My wife, a while back, she was prescribed some prescription painkillers and muscle relaxers. She had slipped a disc or something in her back. It's been 2.5 years ago. I don't remember what was going on exactly, but she had gotten prescribed some prescription painkillers and muscle relaxers. And so she's taking them till this injury heals up. And when she went to quit, and it was funny, they had them prescribed, you know, every 8 to 12 hours, I forget. But one time she had left her pill bottle at the house and she got mean when it came time for her to take her medicine, and she realized she had a problem. And our pastor had lived a wild life prior to coming to Jesus. And so he was familiar with such things, and he told her what to do, told her what not to do, told her, you need to get rid of these, because if not, you're just going to take them till you're out, and then you got a bigger problem. And you need to drink a lot of water, and you need to, you know, come down off of them, but you need to flush them out as quick as you can. So that was kind of the gist of it. And she came off of her drug problem. But it was no fun for a couple weeks. So, you know, and that was, I'll call it amateur counseling or amateur therapy. But, you know, if you got a problem with drugs or alcohol or anything, don't be afraid to go get some help, because if you try it on your own, or even if you don't stick with the program and whatnot, it can very likely just run you straight into the ground. And I've seen it several times. And I count myself fortunate my wife stopped it there. So, anyway, that's enough out of me today, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. See y'all next time.